Welcome back to another episode of Off the Bench, Northern Arizona Prep Sports, presented by Rice Accounting and Jackson Hewitt Tax Services and Cottonwood Parks and Recreation. I'm your host, Philip Catafamo. We have got a great show in store for you this week. Later in the program, we'll be joined by Payson boys basketball coach Robert Mavis to speak about his program's recent winning streak, how he relates to his players, and preview their next game against Snowflake. We'll then be joined by Bradshaw Mountain girls soccer coach John Sterling to break down his solid group of sophomores, what the team has been focusing on in practice, and how he's preparing for the final leg of the season. And when we return from break, we'll be joined by Flagstaff boys basketball coach Nick Walton to speak about how the senior class has embraced the underclassmen, the JV program's impressive season, and their final two games. All of that and a whole lot more coming up right here on Off the Bench. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Two things we can count on every year:
a new set of tax rules and great weather here in Northern Arizona.
Jackson Hewitt Tax Service, locally owned and operated by Lewis Rice since 1997, is here for you all year long.
Your neighborhood Jackson Hewitt Tax Office will help you in all of your taxing situations.
Electronic filing is always free with your tax preparation at Jackson Hewitt Tax Service.
Get more in return. Call 1-800-234-1040 for an office near you.
Welcome back to Off the Bench, Northern Arizona Prep Sports, presented by Rice Accounting and Jackson Hewitt Tax Services and Cottonwood Parks and Recreation. I'm joined now by Flagstaff High School boys basketball coach Nick Walton. Coach Walton, welcome back onto the program.
Hey, thanks for having me back. Always a pleasure to be here.
Well, we're always happy to have you, Coach. It's definitely a lot of fun talking Flagstaff basketball. The Eagles are currently 11-5 overall. We're getting closer and closer to the start of the playoffs here. And Coach, I want to ask, at this point of the season, I mean, where's the focus just in general down the stretch?
Yeah, we're just taking things one game at a time right now. We had the goal at the beginning of the year to be competitive in the region, and we got a chance to win it. We're in the hunt with Prescott and Cocoa, so we're just one game at a time, controlling what we can control, and obviously we'll just want an opportunity to play in the state playoffs.
Where's the focus been in practice this week, coaches? Again, we kind of reached that final last week of the season.
We've really been trying to step up our defensive intensity, trying to improve our man-to-man defense and having that carry over, giving us some good energy and transitioning into our offense. And then also ball control and just being smart with being able to execute down the stretch.
How do you keep your guys focused? I mean, like I mentioned, we're 11-5 overall right now, Coach. You guys are looking to finish out strong for the rest of the season. You necessarily don't want to drop any games here down the stretch, but, a loss is not necessarily going to be a problem. But how do you keep your guys focused down this final stretch of the season,
Yeah, I think, that's the $1 million question, it seems like. I think, luckily for us, we got a good group of seniors, and we got a good group that I think felt that burn of being on the outside looking in by one slot last year. And so a lot of it comes from them. I've been pretty lucky. I feel like they generate a lot of good leadership, and, so it's just trying to help them to, we've gone over so much in practice. They know the theories, they know our strategies, they know what we want to do. So just trying to help them work on the little things that, that will result in success down the stretch.
When you talk about focusing on defense, Coach, I mean, what do you do specifically in practice? Are there any drills? Is there anything that you do to sort of just build up that confidence in the defense or just kind of focus more on it?
Yeah, I mean, we do a lot of like one-on-one, shell drill stuff. But we try and make been trying to make practices more competitive and trying to reward giving points for like defensive stops or like deflections or things like that, and then trying to score it. So it ramps up the defensive energy to where, a lot of times we'll go, oh, you got to get some stops to where you can get back on offense, however we split it up. But, having some rewards for doing those things on defense, has helped bring our energy up. But a lot of drill work, just a lot of like competitive, tough 1-on-1, 2-on-2, 3-on-3 stuff that we see that helps transition into like game type situations.
Well, I was going to say, if you're in those situations where you're getting guys playing one-on-one and like you said, you're putting a point system on defensive stops, you're already getting guys into the mentality of, okay, transition defense to offense after a stop during a game. So I'm sure, and obviously you've been seeing it, running that type of drill when you're adding a points for defense is already getting these kids the mentality of an in-game situation. Obviously, if you got the ball, scoring has got to be, the next step in terms of that transition. But Coach, the last time we spoke, we were going into the Christmas break. We are now out of the Christmas break, and the Eagles, to start the season, to start the sort of second half going into region, started out a little slow, winning 3 of their first 7 games. But since then, Coach, you guys have really, really been rolling. 5-game winning streak as of right now. Coach, what can you attribute to that streak?
It's just been hard work, honestly. Our guys have they've really bought in, and I think we really hit our stride when we played Paradise Honors. I felt like we were very, very competitive in that game, and we kind of came out of that game with like a new sense of confidence, and it just carried over. I think we didn't play very well against Coconino. Coco's always tough, but then we hit that stretch you're talking about, and really took pride in controlling the things that we could control, which was, can you step it up on the defensive end? Where's your defensive effort? Demonstrate that you can get stops, and then limit our turnovers. That's really been our big focus coming out of Christmas break. And we've been able to do that, and it's transferred over into these games, and we've had a lot of success by being able to get more quality possessions, defensive stops, and scoring the basketball.
Well, I was going to talk a little bit about those turnover problems because that was something that you had mentioned the last time we spoke as well. So it sounds like those problems have improved.
Yeah, it's better for sure. That's one thing you hope for. You hope that as the season goes on, you're constantly improving. So our guys have done a much better job of, I don't want to say slowing down, but at least like recognizing what's presented with them and then making better decisions with the basketball. And it's really helped out for sure.
Do those turnovers, those initial turnover issues, Coach, do those result in more just kind of like is it a conditioning thing? Is it just sort of, like getting back into the tempo of playing or maybe just controlling the speed of the game? Is that kind of where turnover issues happen? What sort of attributes to what attributed to some of those early struggles?
Yeah, I think teams figured out that we got rattled a little bit with like good defensive pressure. And so we tried to mimic that in our practices. So it helped us defensively because we had to step up, but it helped us offensively because we were able to, like I said, not necessarily slow down our pace, but slow down our nerves. Like our guys have just embraced it and have been able to make better decisions with the basketball. I feel like we're handling presses a lot better than we were, which results in just having better quality possessions. When you come down and, games are 6-8 points, just 1 or 2 possessions, it can go either way. So I think our guys have really bought into treasuring each possession and, taking care of the basketball, treasure that possession, and then make it as productive as possible to help win games.
Again, we are speaking with Flagstaff High School boys basketball coach Nick Walton. Again, the Eagles are battling for a seeding in the playoffs right now, 11-5 overall as we get ready for the final stretch of the season. They got a couple games coming up, which we will talk about. Coach, you and I had mentioned last time you've got a very senior-heavy roster this year. You do have a few underclassmen on the roster. How have those seniors embraced that sort of smaller group of underclassmen this year, and how much have they attributed to the development of some of those younger guys?
Yeah, I think I've been really lucky that we've had a lot of older guys that have been in the program for a long time. And so I think it helps that, they went through it. They went through those steps. And then we also are lucky that our younger guys are hungry and they work really hard. I think it would be different if, you had a younger group coming up that were, being lazy, not as self-motivated. But our younger group's pretty self-motivated. They work really hard. And I think that's, two-part. One, they've been able to gain the respect from the older guys because they see just how hard, they practice and they've been pushing them. And then number two, the older guys recognize it. And like you said, they just want to take them along, and they know that they're the future of the program. And I think it's helped having even older guys that have since left our program and graduated. That was what our seniors got from them. And so there's almost like this passing of the torch, like, hey, they happened to us, and these are the benefits that we've received. Having that whole program mentality, we want to make sure and pass that on to the younger guys.
Is there anything else you want to say about this big senior group, Coach?
They're just working really hard. I can't mention that enough. I just feel real lucky. I mean, they're very mature. I think what I'm most impressed with is their chemistry off the floor. They get along really well. When we travel, everything, they're always together. Even when we're not practicing, they all come in together and they hang out together. I think that chemistry has really paid off, and it's been going on for a long time. It's happened since they were freshmen, probably even before then, honestly. So that chemistry, that's just something that you can't coach, and they bring that in, and it's nice that it's rubbing off on all of our teams.
Yeah, and it's good to see. I was going to ask you about how you build sort of that chemistry, but you're right. It's something you necessarily can't coach. I mean, these kids are, we both went through it playing high school sports or playing just organized sports in general. There's kids you click with, and there's kids that don't. But it's nice to hear that you've got a great core of guys who are really embracing that next generation of guys. Because, Coach, you've got an excellent JV program this season right now. I mean, 11 wins on the season for the JV team as of right now. Large senior class is about to move out. You're going to be replacing them with a lot of guys who are on this roster right now. I mean, Coach, what does a JV season like this tell you about the upcoming next season after, or even, a season after that?
It helps you sleep at night, right? It's good to see that, we just got a good group of guys that are coming up. A lot of credit goes to my coaching staff, our JV coach, Coach Hershey, our freshman coach, Coach Rice, and Coach Darnell Allen. They just do a great job of keeping those kids motivated, knowing like the things we want to accomplish at the varsity level. They're vested in the varsity program. We do a lot of things together, but then they're able to take that down to those younger groups. And we know that, the things that they're learning at the JV level are the same things we're going to be doing at the varsity level. So that's always a help. But again, I think the biggest thing is, our kids are motivated. They're self-motivated. They want to be there. They're invested. And when you got that mentality, like kids that want to be there and work hard, it sure makes the environment easy to coach and help them accomplish the goals that you set.
Again, we were speaking with Flagstaff High School boys basketball coach Nick Walton. The Eagles 11-5 right now, rolling off of a 5-game winning streak, getting ready to finish out the rest of their region schedule. Coach, first and foremost, you guys have a tough battle against Prescott, who are really having a phenomenal season this year. You take on the Badgers on February 4th. What are you expecting this time against Coach Stedman and his team?
What are we expecting? It's going to be a battle. I hope we have a little bit better performance than we did earlier this year. I think we've matured a lot. I think we're more prepared for them this go around. But I mean, every game in the region has across the board, it's been a battle. I had that feeling going into it, and it's really turned out to be that way. I mean, how do you stop a kid like Jason Parent? I don't know. I mean, Jason Parent's like one of the top players in the region. So we got to be able to match his intensity. Coach Denman does a heck of a job of bringing a lot of defensive pressure and an explosive offense, a lot of guys that can shoot the ball. And, like I said, we're just going to have to be able to take care of the basketball. We're going to have to be able to shut some guys down. We're going to cross our fingers that being in our gym, our home court advantage is going to help. And, hopefully they miss a few more shots than we do, and we can sneak a victory in.
Well, following that, of course, the Eagles take on the rivaled Coconino Panthers to finish out the season on February 8th. Coach, I know you love playing against Coach Moran, especially at the end of the year in that big rivalry game between your team and his. So I want to ask, I know it's always fun playing the Panthers, but what are you expecting this time against them? And how are you feeling about finishing the season out with them? Do you feel it could be a nice lead into the playoffs for you guys? They're always a tough team to play. How are you feeling against Coconino?
Yeah, I feel like our schedule is really helping us out for like the long-term goal. What do we want? We just want a chance. We want an opportunity to play in the state playoffs. We want to be competitive. And I can't think of, three better teams to do that than Bradshaw Mountain, Prescott, and Coconino. Like I said, all the teams in the region are great, but those three this year have really given us a good challenge. And, the rivalry game, it brings just there's just a little bit different atmosphere with the rivalry.
Can we talk a little bit about that atmosphere, Coach?
What's that?
Can we talk a little bit about that atmosphere? It's a big rivalry between these two schools.
Oh yeah, it is. And there's a lot of hype going into the game. I feel lucky to be a part of it. I played in it and now to coach in it. It's just something different. There's a different feel to the game. Obviously, you want to win it and you want to have the bragging rights, so to speak. But I think what makes it more unique is just how involved the community gets. I've seen it in situations where you got to turn people away at the door because you're at gym capacity.
Yeah.
The community, both for the boys and the girls, and when both the teams are playing at home, the community really rallies behind these kids, which in my mind is the coolest thing ever. Just watching parents and then alumni, community members show up and support the kids. That's what it's all about. And I love that they're so invested in these kids, and it's going to be a fun night. There's nothing better. You start shaking thinking about it. You're just so excited to walk in there and be able to square off with them. But both programs, high class, high respect for each other. They battled out on the court. And the unique thing is, once it's done, they all walk out, a day later, they're all hanging out. I think that's one of the coolest things ever. They all get along. So it'll be a fun night for sure.
Coach, I do want to ask, so you mentioned you played against Coconino as a player. Now you're coaching. Is the rivalry a little different for you now that you're coaching the program as opposed to when you were participating in it?
The feel's the same, which is you still get that excitement. I think you transition from the nerves of being a player to the nerves of being the coach, and you feel a little bit different responsibility. I think what makes the rivalry unique is I actually played for Coach Moran when he was at Flag High. And so it's just it's fun to be able to, now I'm coaching against him in the rivalry. But you just feel that, you kind of feel that burden of, at least I do, of, you want the guys to walk away with a win, especially your seniors. They want to win that rivalry game. And so I just feel that burden of what can I do? What can our coaching staff do to put our guys in a situation where they can be successful? I think that's the biggest difference. You feel the burden as a player for your teammates. You want to do well. But then now as coaching, it's okay, what are we going to do to make our guys successful? And all in all, it's fun. I love it. No,
I'm sure it is, Coach. And I really am going to need to get a chance to get down and watch that rivalry game. And you guys do it every year in every sport, it's that rivalry between Coconino and Flagstaff. Well, it's not a very vicious rivalry. Like you said, a lot of these kids are friends with the kids who go to Coconino, and the kids of Coconino are friends with the kids who go to Flagstaff. But just for those 4 quarters, or those 2 periods, or that one tennis match, or that volleyball set, you hate each other just for a little bit, no hate, no real hatred, just for a little bit. I didn't get a chance to go to a high school that had a definitive rival. We were a newer school, so we were trying to find a rival. So it's really cool for me to get a little more of an insight, especially you as a former Flagstaff Eagle now coaching the program you were a part of. So it's cool to see that perspective, Coach. And I know you love playing against Coach Moran. But again, one last question for you, Coach Walton. Let's talk about the region in general. You'd said that, it's been a little closer this year. Obviously, Prescott's playing very well. Coconino's playing very well. Coach Dave Beery returns back to Mingus Union High School. Things have changed for the 4A Grand Canyon region for basketball, but how is, just real quick, Coach, how have you felt about the region this year?
It's been one of the funnest years in my, as long as I've been doing this. Every game has been, take away what it shows on the scoreboard. There's been moments in every game where it's just been an absolute battle, and it's been fun watching all the kids on every team demonstrate that the Grand Canyon region we're one of the most competitive regions in the state, and it's been fun watching every team battle other teams in the state and being able to be competitive and even win. And so one of the funnest years by far playing in the region. I have the utmost respect for every one of the coaches. It's just like before the game, you're sitting there talking with the guy you're going to go coach against. I think we all have that same respect for each other. So just been an absolute blast. Proud of all the seniors in the region. And we got 4 teams in the top 16 right now. That's awesome. It's awesome. So couldn't be more proud of the region.
Again, Flagstaff boys basketball coach Nick Walton, sir, thank you very much for coming back onto the program to talk about your program.
I appreciate it. Always good to talk to you, Philip. You do such a great job. So thanks for having us.
Well, always happy to have you, Coach. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we'll be joined by Payson boys basketball coach Robert Mavis right here on Off the Bench. Don't go anywhere.
Two things we can count on every year:
a new set of tax rules and great weather here in northern Arizona.
Jackson Hewitt Tax Service, locally owned and operated by Lewis Rice since 1997, is here for you all year long.
Your neighborhood Jackson Hewitt Tax Office will help you in all of your taxing situations.
Electronic filing is always free with your tax preparation at Jackson Hewitt Tax Service.
Get more in return. Call 1-800-234-1040 for an office near you.
Welcome back to Off the Bench, Northern Arizona Prep Sports, presented by Rice Accounting and Jackson Hewitt Tax Services and Cottonwood Parks and Recreation. I'm joined now by Payson High School boys basketball coach Robert Mavis. Coach Mavis, welcome back onto the program.
I appreciate it, Phil. Thanks for taking the time to, give me a little bit of love out here.
Well, we're always happy to have you, Coach. Right now, the Longhorns are currently 7-8 overall. We're getting close to the final stretch of the season. You guys got about 3 games left on the schedule. We'll talk specifically about those games a little bit later in the interview, Coach. But I just want to ask, at this point in the year, where's the focus for the team right now?
Right now, we're focusing on making the state playoffs, to be honest with you. We're ranked 19 right now. They say the top 24, but we got to come out and, we got to show some good quality basketball games against Snowflake and Sholo and Holbrook.
Where have you guys been focusing in practice? Where are just some areas that you guys have been working on as we get closer to the end of the season?
We're working on a lot of pressure situations, like when it comes down to close games. We're working on a lot of trap situations, how to handle the traps, mainly free throws.
Okay.
Free throws are the killers.
Yeah, you gotta assume, Coach. I always attribute free throws to field goals in the NFL or an extra point. You always kind of assume that they're not very significant because they only count for 1 point each attempt, of course. But down the stretch, Coach, those free throws really do come in handy. How are you guys? You talked about defensive pressure. I think you had mentioned as well. What are you guys specifically doing to help improve in both of those areas?
Basically, I'm a big preacher about muscle memory. A repetition controls everything. We run a lot of 6-on-5, 7-on-5, just so the kids can get used to the pressure, because going into the tournament, there's going to be a lot of pressure. And like I tell the kids, I say, you guys are in some unfamiliar territory. So I'm just basically trying to get them ready for the pressure.
Yeah. Coach, the last time you and I spoke, it was right around the start of winter break. And you had mentioned that early on in the season, the team was having some trouble adjusting to sort of your style. You're coaching the program for the first time this year as the varsity head coach. So I'm just curious, have you been able to, here in the second half of the season, gotten the guys to kind of adjust a little bit more to your style? How has that been? How has that relationship been building between you and your players?
Oh, it's been an awesome experience. I mean, they picked up everything that I've asked them to pick up. It is the main thing I work with is what we call a mindset. So we changed the culture here. Now we're changing our mindset, just letting the kids believe in themselves and believing in each other, to be honest with you. That's the kind of coaching I like to do. And
how did you relate to those guys? How did you relate to those guys, Coach, early on? I mean, what did you do in practice? Did you just try to keep practices loose? Were you just a bit more, kind of on them to start? I mean, how did you get these guys to buy in?
Just basically just told them my past experience and told them that you guys have a lot of talent here and you guys just need to believe in yourselves. And we worked our butts off. I brought in a whole different style of training. And they were really into it. They liked it. So after I figured out, hey, they liked this training, so I just pushed them a little more. And here at the Dome, we have stairs, a nice little set of stairs that they got very familiar with. And they bought into it. They're believing in themselves. They believe in their brothers, and they're ready to rock.
Yeah, I remember having to do stair workouts for basketball as well. They were not very fun. What we used to do, they opened up a brand new gymnasium underneath the football stadium at my high school. And there's a nice set of stairs that lead up to the top of the stadium. You take 2 45-pound weights and you make your way up and back down on them. And they're never fun for anybody who's gotten a chance to do stairs. But again, we're speaking with Payson High School boys basketball coach Robert Mavis. The Longhorns are looking to finish out the season here. They've got 3 games left on their schedule, which we will talk about. Currently 7-8 overall right now, number 19 in the state, competing for that play-in round. Coach, the last time we spoke, you guys were going into Christmas break. And when you guys came out of winter break, you guys started off a little slow, 2-5 in your first 7 games. But since then, you guys are really starting to rolling off of a 3-game win streak. Coach, I just want to ask, what changed in that time? What sort of flipped that slow start? And how do you look to continue that hot streak?
I want to revert back to what I was saying earlier in the program. It's just all about a mindset, different belief in themselves. It's all on them, and they're starting to realize that, hey, we can play. And I told them, I think I turned a light bulb on for them, and they really realized that, hey, you know what? We're just as good as anybody else here in the Valley. Yeah. And once that happened, it was just like night and day. You could see it in practice. The intensity in practice was just on point. We were competitive. Yeah. So I think that pays a lot to it.
And the lights go off again. That's the second time that's happened. I'm Coach Mavis. The last time he was here, for those who are listening, Coach is going to go turn back on the light inside of the locker room. The last time we spoke with Coach Mavis, the light went off during the interview. And it's happened once again. So, Coach, if we speak again and the light goes off, it doesn't go off, I'm going to be quite disappointed.
Yeah, me too. I keep telling me it's a sign. And here we go.
And there's the announcements. Yeah, there we go.
Fellas, please come to
just like clockwork. This happened the exact same time when we spoke last time. That's very funny. Are you guys still in the middle of finals like you were then too?
Actually, they're getting ready for our wrestling tournament tonight. So.
Oh, okay.
That they were calling all the wrestlers up to go get, start coming up here and putting the mats down.
Well, then I extend my best wishes and good luck to the Payson Longhorns wrestling team just for the remainder of the season. We'll try to touch base with them here as the season gets to the end. But back again, we're speaking with Payson High School boys basketball coach Robert Mavis. Again, the Longhorns 7-8 overall in the season so far, currently number 19 in the state throughout the entire 3A, trying to compete for that play-in round right now. Coach, I know I had mentioned your returners last time we talked about these guys you're going to be getting back next season. Junior Jack O'Grady, sophomore Andy Hatch. I know those are 2 guys that you mentioned specifically that you're looking forward to getting back next season. I didn't get a chance to ask you about how they've been developing this season. So I just want to ask, those underclassmen you have, the guys you're going to be building on from next season, guys like Jack O'Grady and Andy Hatch. How have they been developing this season, and how have they stepped up this year?
Oh yeah, they stepped up really well. I got them both in the starting lineup. Jack O'Grady, I got to get him to shoot the ball more. Andy Hatch, he's money once you get him into the 15 to 10-yard jumper.
Mhm.
I mean, he's just a solid player. I like both of them. I like all of our returners coming back from our guards, Dexter and Caleb Marinelli. Right, I'm very, very comfortable.
Yeah. Well, I'm just curious. Are there any other guys that you're looking forward to bringing on next season? Anybody from the JV or freshman team as well? While I've got that.
Yeah, actually, we have a couple of other point guards that's going to relieve a little bit of pressure from Dexter and Caleb and Jack and Anderson. They're Sergio Madrid. He's a solid guard. He's a 1-2 guard combo, along with Mikey Shinstock. He can shoot the lights out. So there's like I tell everybody, just shoot the ball. You got the green light.
Yeah, and that's I was going to ask you about shooting the ball. You mentioned Jack has kind of a hesitancy towards taking multiple shots. I mean, how do you instill that confidence into him? Is it very much like just sort of verbal affirmation of just, hey, we trust you, take the shots when they're there? Or is it something you work on in practice? I mean, how do you build that confidence in your young shooter?
Just like you said, just keep telling them, shoot the ball. If you're having an off night, you know what, shoot the ball. It's going to go in eventually. And I always refer back to Michael Jordan and Kobe and Steph Curry. You know what? The only way you're going to score is by shooting the ball. And you know that one Michael Jordan says, I shot 300 times, missed 299, but I hit the game winner.
Yeah.
So
yeah, very much so.
Counts. Yeah.
You had also mentioned last time we spoke about a transfer from Austria in Dominic Streiser. How has he been adapting and developing to your style of basketball? And how has he looked this season?
He's coming along very well. He's still down at the JV level. I tried to take him up to a couple of Wickenburg tournament games, but unfortunately he twisted his ankle the prior night. So he really hasn't got to see any varsity action. But his knowledge of the game is really good, is on point. He knows the game. And I'm telling you, he's a dominant force right there in the middle for our JV squad. He's slapping stuff off the rim. So I'm very happy where his progression is taking us.
I'd like to ask more specifically, Coach. I mean, what are you guys focusing on with Dominic? I know right now he's got ankle problems, but just maybe more so earlier this season, or what your plans for him are in the off season. I mean, how have you been trying to ease him into the it's somewhat American style of basketball? I know it's not very similar to it's not very different from European. It's just a different style of pace. But how have you been helping his transition?
I'm just right now, Coach Redford and we're working on his low post game, how to just basically square him up and throw a little baby jump hook and do a lot of up and unders like the Kevin McHale's. Like, as you can tell, I'm old school.
Kevin McHale. No, I am a Lakers fan, so I'm familiar with the old Boston Celtics.
Yeah, I'm a diehard Laker fan.
Yeah.
Just working on his low post game, because we already know he can shoot the mid range. And once we work on his low post and we take him out of the key, brings the big guys out, it's going to open up our middle, and he can go to work.
Yeah. And we're seeing a lot more of that, Coach, where you're seeing a lot less of those big men inside, and a lot of these guys starting to make their way out to the wings and out to the arc of the outside, shooting 3-pointers and adding that mid-range game, very much like what Dirk Nowitzki brought to the Dallas Mavericks in the late 90s of the NBA. And it's interesting if you can get Dominic Streiser to not only operate efficiently as a big man down low, because I think you had mentioned to me that he was like 6'3". He's a pretty tall kid.
Yeah, he's 6'4", dunking easily.
Yeah, I bet. I bet. And if you can work him outside, I mean, that's just going to open up your offense incredibly, and it just adds another weapon. So, wow, he definitely brings a completely different dynamic to your offense going into next season.
Yeah, that he does. And it's a blessing, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I bet so. Again, we're speaking with Payson High School boys basketball coach Robert Mavis. Coach, let's take a look at this schedule. You've got 3 games down the stretch here. One was a reschedule. You guys start off with your first game on February 8th against Snowflake to begin that final leg of the season. The last time you guys took on the Cougars, it was a very close 70-67 loss. I'm curious, Coach, what are you expecting from Snowflake this time around?
I'm expecting them to be ready for us. I really am. I think they slept on us a little bit when they came into Payson. I really do. But I really think they're going to be ready for us again. And I tell my boys, I say, hey, they know who you are now. So you guys better bring it.
Is there anything you took from that first game that you're looking to sort of focus on here at the next opportunity when you guys take them on?
Just rebounding.
Okay.
We got to control the boards a little bit better.
So another question for you, Coach. Outside of rebounding, are there any other areas that you'd like to see this team improve in before you head into that final stretch of the season?
Basically team defense.
Okay.
So rebounding, team defense, because we already know we can shoot the ball when we're on target. I mean, it's like hitting the ocean.
Yeah. After you guys take on Snowflake, you go to face the Winslow Bulldogs on February 11th, or excuse me, you face Sholo, which was a rescheduled game on February 8th, and then you take on Winslow on the 11th. So, Coach, let's talk about Sholo. I believe they're also another region team. Like you said, it was a reschedule from earlier in the year. What are you expecting from Sholo this time around?
Honestly, it's a tight race. I just see us three. It's Sholo, Snowflake, Payson, Holbrook. Yeah. I mean, we got out of Holbrook with the W, so that put us in a good situation to now worry about Snowflake and Sholo. Sholo, yeah. I think they're going to come at us again. I mean, it's just going to be a great game all around. All three games are going to be great.
Yeah, I think so too. And then finishing out, of course, Winslow, February 11th, Coach. You get the Bulldogs one more time. They're the last game of the season. It'll be your, like I said, the final game of the season. So what are you expecting from Winslow as well?
A lot of pressure. Okay. A lot of pressure up and down the court. I mean, just regular Winslow basketball. Let's get up and down, and we just got to learn how to control the pace. Yeah. Once we do that, that's what's keeping us in control.
So that's kind of really what you have to do, Coach. You mentioned Winslow applying a lot of defensive pressure to counter that. Like you said, you guys just have to control possession, basically, right?
Yeah, that's it. Take control of the ball, and I mean, be smart with the ball.
Yeah. I just want to ask, Coach. Obviously, as we're getting down to the end of the season, you're finishing out the region. Just in general, what have you liked from the region this year in your first season coaching the varsity program?
Oh, I love it. It's very competitive. It's very competitive. I like it. I like it a lot. I mean, you don't know what to expect. You can give it any given day. I mean, it's great. I love it. Are there any other teams now that, since you've gotten a chance to almost see the region all the way through, are there any teams that you're going to be circling the calendar on going forward to next season? Anybody that you're excited to see next season in the region? Oh, yes, all of them.
Okay, good answer.
All of them. I mean, that's how competitive this region is. Yeah. You don't know. I mean, it's a great region. I love it.
Again, we're speaking with Payson High School basketball coach Robert Mavis. Coach Mavis, before we let you go, I just want to ask, like I mentioned, this is your first year coaching this varsity program. What have you learned in this first year? How have you grown as a coach? And what will the focus in the offseason be? Will we see the return of some of your retreats to help with the team building? What's the plan?
The plan is right now we're going to make state, worry about our summer program. I want to say the middle of April. Mm-hmm. We're running something back either the middle of April, get them back in the gym, start doing a lot of weight room, a lot of conditioning, getting them ready for the summer program. And yeah, we're going to have our own little Longhorn shootout again in the month of June. Nice. And hopefully we get invited back to Page. Yeah, because that was a really great tournament. And I'll get a hold of Coach Gerald Begay and ask him, hey, we want to come back. But yeah, it was just a great experience this year. The guys were just phenomenal. I mean, they're coming together, and I can't ask for anything better.
Coach, before we let you go, one last question for you. I mean, you talk about some of the guys that you've got, that senior class that you've got, your first group of seniors. I mean, what can you say about their contributions this season before we let you go?
Oh man, I got some dogs in Jeremy Chavez. He is just a dog, dude. I don't know how to explain it. Easton Redford, he's my general on the court. Sometimes he gets overexcited, but you know what? We calm him down, and he's a lot better. Who else do I have? I have Gary Bingham. He's starting to come around at the perfect time now that he's over his little indigestion things going on, whatever it is. Yeah, my seniors, they were great leaders for the younger groups. I mean, yeah. When we went to Page, I mean, I put my younger group with my seniors. Oh man, they took care of them. And that's what I like to see, a little brotherhood.
Coach, just I've got one more since you mentioned that brotherhood. I mean, when kids go through your program now, I mean, what do you want them to take away from it?
I want them to know that, hey, you're just not here for the season. We're building a family here. Yeah. I mean, you need anything, you have me, you have my coaching staff. I mean, we're bringing a brotherhood together and we're calling it family. It's just something it's going to be fun to watch grow.
Well, again, the Payson Longhorns take on Snowflake February 8th. Then they take on Snowflake. Then they take on Sholo, and then they take on Winslow before they finish out the rest of the season. Coach Robert Mavis, thank you very much for coming back on the show to get us up to speed on your team. Best of luck in the play-in round for the playoffs. Best of luck on the rest of the season. I know we'll touch base very soon.
I appreciate it. Thanks, Phil. You have a good one. We'll talk to you guys soon.
You too, Coach. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we'll be joined by Bradshaw Mountain High School girls soccer coach John Sterling right here on Off the Bench. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back to Off the Bench, Northern Arizona Prep Sports, presented by Cottonwood Parks and Recreation and Gettles High Desert Mechanical. I'm joined now by Bradshaw Mountain High School girls soccer coach John Sterling. Coach Sterling, welcome back onto the program.
Good morning, young man. How are you?
I'm doing good, sir. I'm very happy to have you on the show. We're looking at the final stretch of the soccer season. Right now, the Bears are currently 6-3 overall. They're getting ready for a game against Lee Williams on February 1st, which we will talk about a little bit later in the interview. But, Coach, I just want to ask at this point in the season, what's the focus as we enter sort of the final, I'd say, week or so of the season?
Yeah, we have 3 games left, 8 days, 9 days. It's just taking it one day at a time, making sure everybody's healthy when we come out of games. There's not much we do in between games other than roll them out, stretch them out, tell them what the game plan is for the next day, and then get ready to go. So there's not much focus at this point. At this point in the season, there's not much we can change, not much we can do, right. Especially when it's a game every other day. There's nothing you can really train for. You just have to power through it.
I'm curious, Coach, were there things in the middle of the season that you guys have made adjustments on coming into like this latter half of the season?
Yeah, one of the things we worked on the most was really hitting the goal. Okay. Getting the ball inside the frame. We spent quite a bit of time on that. Earlier this month, our average is not well. It's not good and it's still not good, but we did work on that. You can't take 50 shots a night and only make 5 and then get into region and expect to take where you're only going to get 10 shots and expect to score. So that's something we really tried to focus on and getting that ball into the corners of the net away from the goalkeeper's hands.
Well, Coach, I know you've got a great core of seniors, which we've talked about. So like I said, this is the final stretch of the season. I just want to say, is there anything else you want to say about that group, how they've impacted this program for the past 4 years or 3 years, however long these girls have been a part of this program? It's funny. Some girls come into their own as sophomores or juniors, but we've had several that have really, as seniors, finally became the players we wanted them to become, and they've really helped. The big one for me has been Bria Coleman, who had it still is torn. She has a torn PCL. Ooh. And she's actually done enough therapy that the muscles around it have taken over and she can actually play. Oh. She doesn't play a lot and she doesn't want to be in the real physical games, but she wants to be out there and be able to help. And that leadership from her has really helped us a lot at this point. Little Emily Alvarez she's a machine. The girls got her a stuffed goat that she carries around with. Everybody calls her the goat. So,
she carries a stuffed goat around, and I guess that's going to be, even though we're the Bears, that's going to become the team's mascot from here on out. So,
well, I guess it's a good thing you don't have any rival schools that are the goats there, Coach.
kind of a cute story, but they've really stepped up and really changed. Several of them, like I say, are challenging to the better younger players for the spots and are seeing a lot more playing time than I thought they would. So it's been good to see for them. It's been a good final year for them.
You talk about some of those players coming into their own a little bit later in their careers at Bradshaw Mountain, and some, of course, a little sooner. But where do you see that indication, Coach? Is it like you look from one year to the next and you go, okay, this sophomore has really made some strides into her junior year? Is it something on the field you see? Is it just kind of a feeling? How do you kind of gauge that?
And I noticed this, man, I don't know, probably 7-8 years ago now. There's a change that happens. There's a mindset change that happens from the sophomore year to the junior year. That's usually where we see it. And it's, they leave after that last game as sophomores, and we may not see them again for a couple months. I run into them on campus or out at a track meet or something they might be running in. But when those doors open and that gate opens for summer training in June, the seniors and they come back as juniors, and there's just a different vibe. They're more serious. They're more dedicated to the training. I think as freshmen and sophomores, they're told by the other girls, don't waste it, because it's before you know it, it's over.
Yeah.
And the seniors tell them that every year. And I think that when they become juniors, all of a sudden it's like, oh man, I'm halfway through, and it's flown by, and we're already at spring or summer training. And they're more focused, and you can see it, as freshmen and sophomores, they're still, okay, giggly and, laughing, and the juniors and seniors come in, and it is just a mindset. And that's typically when we see it. Some of them, you start to see it midway sophomore year. The ones that are more competitive, the ones that maybe aren't as competitive, you start to see it as, you may see the attitude as a junior, but you may not see the body and the skill and the drive catch up until they're a senior. So it's something that we noticed several years ago, and it's really fun to watch.
Now, what about when I know you've got a few players on your roster who are underclassmen. Obviously, you've got a standout freshman in Taylor Hogan. She's got 6 goals through 6 games so far this season. But even her, she is technically tied as one of your leading scorers, along with the senior up at the top of the stat sheet. And even she, I'm sure, is at a certain level that maybe some freshmen aren't at that point. Obviously, you're not carrying an entire roster of freshmen. So, I want to ask, what about in those instances where you do see a freshman or a sophomore kind of show those early intangibles like Taylor may have, or even your goalie in Zada Paulino? What about the flip of that, Coach, where it's like, okay, they're kind of coming into it now as opposed to later?
It's just, it kind of depends on the player. Some of them are, they're just maybe more natural at scoring, or in Taylor's instance, she was moved from, when she first came in, she's like, oh, I'm a defender, because that's where she's always played. Well, the bottom line is for me, she's not a defender. She doesn't have the mentality to be a defender. And early on, both one of my assistants, Nikki, and I told her, you're a goal scorer. And that's where we moved her to. And, she's kind of tall and she's got long legs, and she can the ball comes near and she just pokes into the goal. So the big one that when I talk about something like this is Haley Denman, who from the minute she came in, Haley as a freshman scored, I don't know how many goals, 25, 30 goals in their second year. She led the league in it. So, there's just some players who they either take to it, or and sometimes it's just being in the right place and maybe getting those goals against teams that are a little lower level. And you see that, okay, so they're good here now, but we need to make that transition against region teams and against the better teams that we're going to play, so that when they do get there, it's not so much of a change for them, and they can pull that off.
Again, we were speaking with Bradshaw Mountain girls soccer coach John Sterling. The Bears are looking at the final stretch of their season. Again, they're getting ready for their next game against Lee Williams on February 1st. They are currently 6-3 overall. Coach, I mentioned your sophomore goalie in Zada Paulino. How has she grown throughout this season for you? And what are you kind of expecting from her next season?
Just a quick one. It's pronounced Zeta. So
Zeta.
It's spelled, Zeta. It's spelled differently. You actually pronounce it like it's spelled, but it's pronounced.
I'm a very literal person, Coach.
So, hey, if I looked at it the first time I'd have said it, I still spell it Z-E-T. She's had a pretty rough go because she finished last club season, I think, with a head injury or something. And then she was in a car wreck. They were actually hit and she received a very, very serious concussion. She did virtually no training at all fall long. So when she came into the season, she was cold, basically cold. She had done nothing preseason at all. And even in our preseason, she didn't train with us. So up until about a week before our first games, she wasn't even on the field with us because she hadn't been cleared medically. But that also affected her mental state. And we've seen flashes of the goalkeeper she was last year, but it has not been consistent. But yesterday against Flagstaff, something clicked and we began to see it more consistent. So just trying to get her over those mental humps of, oh, I'm going to get hurt again or things like that. And that's tough for anybody, let alone a young person or a young player. So she's getting through it. It's probably going to take her the rest of the year and the spring to totally come back to 100%. But that's what it's about, is rehabilitating them and getting her back on the field and getting her back to what she was last year. Because, she was a force to be reckoned with last year. She kept us in a lot of games. And this year it's been difficult for her. It really has. And it's been difficult for us to watch. So
yeah, I can't imagine, Coach, on either side, watching this young player go through such a traumatic experience. And then it's you can clearly tell, you mentioned it, you could see the mental frustrations or just sort of the mental fears of getting hurt again. I mean, I'm sure it's a lot of players have that fear. I'm sure Bria Coleman, you mentioned, she's another player who had not as significant of an injury, but somebody who's like, hey, I just want to take it easy. I don't want to get hurt again. But Coach, outside of more verbal, like confidence given to her, letting her know that she is capable of doing this, is there any kind of drills or anything that you guys kind of do for her to instill that confidence a little bit more? I know she's not necessarily where she was, but she will be eventually. What are you guys doing to sort of help that confidence a little bit?
You just try and get them into training situations where they can have success.
Okay.
And then, my biggest thing is, okay, you had success there. Now let's take it one step further. Okay. Don't remember the injury or don't remember what you did wrong. Remember what you just did right and try and build on that confidence. And that's really all you can do. And we do that with shooters too, when, they just can't seem to hit the net. It's get them to hit that goal and then get them to remember that one goal and then build on that. So it's kind of the same way all the way around.
Well, like I mentioned, Coach, you guys take on Lee Williams February 1st. This is the first time you guys are taking on Lee Williams this season. What are you expecting from the Volunteers this time around?
Lee Williams is a very physical team. I expect that again, as well as Mojave next week. We got to win both of those next week to advance. So I'm looking at a very physical game. I've watched a lot of their game film. I know what they're going to do. I know how they play. I know who their players are. And it's just getting the players to perform the game plan, I guess is the best way to say it. Get them to follow the game plan and do what we need to do and shut down the player that is their biggest threat and prevent her from getting the ball. And if we do that, we will have no problems. It's very simple. They really are. They have that one player who's just phenomenal. And if we can shut her down, and I believe we can, we will be successful at the end of the night.
What have you liked from the region so far, Coach? I mean, I know you're kind of facing the rest of that region schedule going down the final stretch this week. But I want to ask, from who you've ran into so far, or have you heard anything about the region? I know Prescott and Flagstaff right now are playing very, very well. What are you expecting from the rest of the region going forward? And outside of Prescott, Coach, is there anyone else you're kind of looking forward to taking on?
All three of them, really. This region is, and I've said this before, and we all say this in the region, all the coaches, we have the hardest region in the state. We have 7 teams, and it is not unusual to see 5 or 6 of us go into the tournament into a 24 team field. So, I mean, we get 25% of the teams in the field. I don't remember how many regions there are, but most of them get 1 or 2. We get 5 or 6. So every game is like a rivalry game because we all know each other. The girls all know each other. And it doesn't matter if it's Lee Williams or Mojave or Coconino or Mingus, it's a rivalry game to us. So, Mingus specifically, because I don't know who their rival is over there. And to us that, to them, we're really their rival. So every game is a rivalry game within the region, and you can't look past any team. And I believe that on any given day in this region, anybody can beat anybody because if we have a good day, we're going to be fine. If we have an off day, we're in trouble, which we did earlier in the week. We had an off day. We got beat. So, Flagstaff, we played them yesterday. They are as good as I've ever seen them, even though they've lost their longtime head coach. They were phenomenal. Even though once we figured out what they were doing, we frustrated them. I haven't seen much of Prescott other than some game film. I haven't been able to get up there. I've talked to Paul a couple of times. I know he's expressed concern to me about, some of their areas of play, but they look good to me. So I know they play on Tuesday night, the 2 of them. I wish I was not in Lee Williams because I had to go watch that game just because it's going to be after last year's play-in game or playoff game. It'd be a fun game for them. So it's a tough region and it's a lot of fun.
Again, the Bears take on Lee Williams on February 1st, and they take on Mojave February 3rd before finishing off against their big-time rival, the Prescott Badgers, on the 7th. Bradshaw Mountain girls soccer coach John Sterling, sir, thank you very much for coming back onto the show. I wish you the best of luck going forward on the season, and thank you very much for coming back.
Thank you, sir. You know me. I'm always willing to just talk to you and let you know what's going on over here.
It's always great to speak with you, Coach, and best of luck on the season going forward. That's going to do it for this episode of Off the Bench. I'd like to thank all of my guests for coming on the show this week. I'm Philip Catafamo, wishing you a great rest of your week, and we'll see you again next time.